The air in the Adirondack Mountains was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and the promise of an escape from my daily life. I stepped out of the car, feeling the weight of my responsibilities slip away momentarily. This vacation was supposed to be a time for family bonding, a chance to reconnect with my stepson, Jake. My husband had decided to stay behind for work, leaving us alone in this rustic cabin surrounded by towering trees and the sounds of nature. As I unpacked our bags, I caught sight of Jake by the lake, his figure silhouetted against the shimmering water. He looked so young and carefree, a stark contrast to the tension that often filled our home. I felt a pang of longing for connection, for warmth. The distance between my husband and me had grown insurmountable over time. Nights spent in silence had become our norm. With each passing hour, I found myself stealing glances at Jake. He was charming in his own right, with a quick wit that reminded me of better days when laughter filled our lives. We decided to take a hike that afternoon, venturing into the lush greenery that surrounded us. As we walked side by side, our conversations flowed easily, laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Yet beneath that surface joy lay an undercurrent I couldn't ignore, an attraction that felt both thrilling and terrifying. That night, as darkness enveloped us and stars twinkled overhead like distant promises, we settled around the campfire. The flames danced between us as we shared stories from our lives. Jake spoke about his dreams while I recounted tales from my youth. Each word seemed to draw us closer together. It was as if we were weaving an invisible thread that connected our hearts. Yet guilt gnawed at me like a persistent shadow. This was wrong. I was married to his father, after all. As I gazed into Jake's eyes, something shifted within me. A desire to break free from my loneliness clashed with the reality of my commitments. The warmth of the fire contrasted sharply with the chill creeping into my heart. Later that evening, as we retreated into the cabin's cozy interior, I found myself unable to sleep. The silence wrapped around me like a heavy blanket while thoughts raced through my mind, thoughts of Jake's laughter and how it echoed in my ears long after he stopped speaking. The allure of his presence tugged at me relentlessly. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling until I could stand it no longer. Rising quietly, I slipped into the living room where Jake sat on the couch absorbed in a book. He looked up as I entered, surprise flickering across his face before giving way to a warm smile. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly. "Too much on my mind," I admitted, taking a seat across from him. We talked quietly about everything and nothing until time lost its meaning. It felt effortless being with him in this moment devoid of judgment or expectation. But as laughter faded into silence again, an unspoken tension hung between us, a tension that felt both electric and dangerous. The clock ticked on as night deepened outside, shadows danced on walls painted by flickering light from a nearby lamp. In that intimate space filled with shared secrets and growing emotions, something shifted once more. The air thickened with anticipation. Jake leaned closer. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper when he said something so simple yet profound. "I'm glad we're here together." My heart raced at his words. I could feel every pulse echoing through me as if they were calling out for something more than friendship or family ties. Before I could stop myself or weigh the consequences carefully enough, our eyes locked in an unbreakable gaze filled with longing. The moment hung suspended in time, reality blurred around us until all that remained were two souls yearning for connection amidst their respective struggles. But just before crossing an invisible line into territory neither of us had prepared for, he pulled back slightly as if sensing what might happen next. "I should probably head to bed," he said awkwardly but didn't move away just yet. "Yeah," I replied breathlessly but stayed rooted where I sat, the weight of temptation heavy upon me like an anchor holding me down against reason itself. As night wore on outside those cabin walls, filled only by nature's symphony, I wrestled internally between desire and responsibility while contemplating what tomorrow might bring when dawn broke over this idyllic landscape once more. As the stars twinkled above the cabin, I sat by the flickering campfire, its warmth contrasting with the cool night air. My stepson, Alex, shared stories from his childhood, laughter spilling forth like the flames that danced before us. Each anecdote drew me in further, weaving a tapestry of connection that felt both exhilarating and unnerving. "Remember when we tried to catch fireflies?" he asked, a playful grin lighting up his face. I chuckled softly, recalling that long-ago summer evening when we had chased those tiny lights together. "You were determined to catch one in a jar," I replied. "But they always escaped." "Just like me," he said with a hint of mischief in his voice. The laughter faded as an unspoken tension settled between us, thickening the air around the fire. The weight of my guilt pressed heavily on my chest. I had come here seeking solace, but instead found myself drawn toward him in ways I hadn't anticipated. His youthful energy was intoxicating. It stirred something deep within me that I thought had long been dormant. "Do you think your dad misses us?" Alex asked suddenly, breaking my reverie. I hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I hope so," I finally said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. The truth was more complicated. My husband's absence felt like a chasm growing wider each day. As we sat there under the vast sky, our conversation shifted from childhood memories to dreams for the future. Alex spoke about his aspirations and fears with an openness that made my heart ache with longing for connection and understanding that seemed elusive elsewhere. "Sometimes I wish things were different," he murmured, glancing at me with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "What do you mean?" He hesitated again before answering. "You know, family dynamics can be tough." I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of unspoken words hanging between us like a fragile thread. There was an intimacy in this moment, one that felt both comforting and dangerous. The fire crackled softly as silence enveloped us for a moment. My mind raced with thoughts of boundaries and consequences while my heart urged me to lean into this newfound bond. "Can we make a pact?" Alex asked suddenly. "A pact?" I echoed, intrigued yet wary. "To always be honest with each other," he said earnestly. "No matter what." I bit my lip as uncertainty washed over me. Honesty could unravel everything I had built over years, a life filled with obligations and expectations. "We should probably get some rest," I suggested gently, trying to steer away from this precarious path we were treading. "Yeah," he agreed reluctantly but didn't move from his spot beside me. The night deepened around us as we lingered by the fire's glow, two souls seeking warmth amidst their own isolation. And then it happened, a fleeting moment where our gazes locked in mutual understanding before something shifted within me, a daring impulse ignited by desire and desperation alike. In one swift motion, our lips met, soft and tentative at first, before igniting into something more fervent and consuming than either of us expected. The kiss felt forbidden yet liberating. It held all the unspoken yearnings we had kept hidden beneath layers of propriety and guilt. Just as quickly as it began, reality crashed back in like an icy wave washing over warmth, leaving only confusion in its wake. We pulled apart breathlessly, shame flooded through me like poison coursing through my veins. "What did we just do?" I whispered hoarsely. "I don't know," Alex replied quietly, his brow furrowed with concern mirroring my own turmoil. The gravity of our actions settled heavily upon us as we exchanged uncertain glances beneath the starlit sky, the enormity of what lay ahead looming ever larger against the backdrop of our shared secret. As dawn approached on this serene landscape filled with promise and peril alike, I found myself grappling not just with feelings for Alex but also with questions surrounding my marriage, a relationship growing colder by the day while passion flickered dangerously close to life anew here in these woods. Morning light crept into the cabin through gaps in worn wooden shutters as I awoke alone. Alex must have slipped away unnoticed during those early hours before daylight broke fully over our secluded retreat. A pang of longing shot through me at his absence, an ache intertwined with guilt clawing at my insides like vines wrapping tightly around a tree trunk until it could no longer breathe freely beneath their weighty embrace. I dressed quietly while contemplating whether last night had been merely an impulsive mistake or if it signified something deeper. A yearning for connection beyond familial ties now tangled up within complexities neither of us could fully comprehend yet dared not ignore any longer either. After breakfasting alone on coffee brewed strong enough to chase away lingering shadows from dreams unfulfilled, my thoughts drifted back toward yesterday's events. The laughter echoed still within these walls alongside whispers shared by flickering flames under stars now fading into memory. A sudden rustle outside pulled me back from reverie. Curiosity piqued as footsteps approached, the sound unmistakably belonging to someone familiar yet distant all at once. My heart raced unexpectedly upon realizing who it might be. It couldn't be him already. My husband? But why would he arrive so soon? Anxiety gripped me tightly while anticipation danced chaotically within. The knowledge that time was short weighed heavily upon every decision made henceforth. Before I could gather myself completely or consider how best to navigate this unexpected turn of events, the doors swung open abruptly revealing not just him but also everything left unsaid between us, all too clearly written across faces now caught off guard by circumstance. The storm came swiftly, dark clouds rolling in like a warning. The air turned heavy, thick with tension and unspoken words. I glanced at my stepson, his face reflecting a mix of excitement and apprehension. We had just returned from a hike, our laughter still lingering in the air, but now it was overshadowed by the impending downpour. "Let's head inside," he suggested, his voice steady despite the brewing storm outside. I nodded, feeling an inexplicable pull toward him as we hurried back to the cabin. Once inside, the sound of rain began to patter against the roof, a comforting rhythm that contrasted with my racing heart. The cozy space felt even more intimate under the dim light of the fireplace. We settled onto the couch, wrapped in a shared blanket, our bodies instinctively drawing closer for warmth. "What do you think we should do?" he asked, glancing out at the sheets of rain. "It's too bad we can't go back out." I chuckled lightly, trying to mask my growing unease. "We could play a game or watch a movie," I suggested, but my mind was elsewhere. The crackling fire illuminated his features, casting shadows that danced across his face. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and I felt a shiver run down my spine, not from the chill but from something deeper. As we sat there in silence for a moment too long, I sensed an undeniable shift in our dynamic. The air felt electric between us, every heartbeat echoed like a drumbeat urging me to acknowledge what had been building beneath the surface. "I've really enjoyed this trip," he said softly, breaking the silence as his gaze met mine. "It's nice to get away." "It is," I replied quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. My heart thudded loudly in my chest as I searched for words that wouldn't betray me or our fragile connection. The storm intensified outside as if mirroring my internal conflict. Each clap of thunder resonated with an urgency that stirred something within me. It was as if nature itself was urging us to confront what lay hidden beneath layers of guilt and longing. He leaned closer again as another flash of lightning illuminated his eyes, a spark igniting something unspoken between us. "You know," he began hesitantly, "I feel like we've grown closer this week." I swallowed hard, those words hung heavily in the air between us. My mind raced with questions about boundaries and consequences while simultaneously yearning for connection. How had we arrived at this moment? Before I could respond or retreat into safer territory, he reached out and brushed his fingers against mine, an innocent touch that sent shockwaves through me. The world outside faded away, all that existed was this small cabin filled with warmth and uncertainty. In that instant of vulnerability and raw emotion, the walls around my heart began to crack further open. Our lips met softly at first, it was tentative yet electrifying, a collision of fear and desire that blurred reality into something intoxicatingly real. Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, a branch breaking under the weight of rain-soaked wood, snapping me back into reality like cold water splashed on my face. Panic surged through me as I pulled away abruptly, confusion clouded my thoughts while guilt clawed at my insides. "What just happened?" he asked breathlessly, his eyes wide with surprise and something else. Was it hope? We shouldn't have done that," I stammered, feeling heat rise to my cheeks as shame flooded over me like an unwanted tide. "I know," he replied quietly but didn't look away. Instead, he held my gaze firmly, as if daring me to deny what had just transpired between us. The storm raged on outside while turmoil brewed within me, a tempest of emotions battling for dominance over reason and morality. How could this be happening? What would it mean for us if we crossed this line? I stood up abruptly. Pacing helped clear some fog from my mind even though it did nothing to quell the storm brewing inside me, the kind that threatened everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. "I need some air," I murmured before slipping outside into the rain-soaked world beyond, where nature roared angrily above while droplets splashed against skin like icy reminders of reality crashing down around me. The cool rain felt refreshing against heated skin but offered little solace from spiraling thoughts swirling around in chaotic patterns. Thoughts about choices made without fully understanding their consequences or implications upon returning home where life awaited with its responsibilities and expectations. After several moments spent inhaling deeply amidst fresh scents rising from damp earth, I turned back toward cabin hoping clarity would find its way through murky waters surrounding heart's desires mixed with guilt still clinging stubbornly within shadows cast by conscience light. As I entered again, the sight before me sent another wave crashing over. There stood not just him, but also memories wrapped tightly around unfulfilled promises made long ago when love had once seemed simpler before life complicated everything beyond recognition. "Are you all right?" he asked cautiously. Concern etched across features softened by flickering firelight illuminating warm glow in otherwise darkened room filled now with heavy silence laden thickly between us all three caught unaware by circumstances unfolding unexpectedly. My husband stood there watching, his expression unreadable yet charged with intensity that pierced through layers built over years spent together navigating rocky terrain where misunderstandings often lay hidden beneath surface smiles worn too long. In that moment, I understood how fragile everything truly was. The balance between love lost versus love found teetering precariously upon edge where choices lingered dangerously close threatening to tip scales irrevocably towards unknown futures filled with uncertainty waiting patiently just beyond reach. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. I lay there, tangled in sheets, my heart racing as I recalled the events of the previous night. We spent the night together, a moment suspended in time that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The warmth of his body beside me was a stark contrast to the coldness I had felt from my husband for so long. I turned my head slightly, stealing a glance at my stepson. He looked peaceful in his sleep, his features softened by the gentle light. A wave of guilt washed over me as I thought about what this meant for us. The connection we had forged felt fragile, yet it was undeniably real. Would it survive once we returned to our everyday lives? As I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to disturb him, I felt a rush of anxiety. The cabin was still and serene, but outside, I could hear the faint sounds of nature waking up, the chirping of birds and rustling leaves creating a symphony that soothed my racing thoughts. I made my way to the kitchen to brew some coffee, needing clarity before facing whatever came next. While waiting for the coffee to brew, I wandered around the cabin. Memories of our family vacations flooded back, laughter shared over board games and evenings spent by the fire telling stories. But those memories now felt tainted by this new reality. My heart sank at the thought of my husband back home alone while we were here entwined in something that could shatter everything. As I poured myself a cup of coffee and stepped onto the porch, the cool mountain air filled my lungs. The view was breathtaking. Mountains stood tall against a clear blue sky, their majesty both comforting and daunting. It reminded me that nature had its own way of healing wounds, yet here I was creating new ones. Moments later, he joined me outside, rubbing sleep from his eyes and offering me a shy smile that made my heart flutter again. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," I replied, forcing myself to maintain composure despite the whirlwind inside me. We stood side by side on the porch for a moment in silence before he broke it again. "Last night, it felt different." I nodded slowly as he continued. "I never thought we'd get this close." "Neither did I admitted softly. "But it happened." The weight of our unspoken feelings hung heavily between us like fog settling over the mountainside. Each word spoken only deepened our bond while simultaneously intensifying my internal conflict. "I don't want to regret this," he said finally, looking away towards the horizon as if searching for answers among distant peaks. "Me neither," I replied honestly, though regret already gnawed at me like an insatiable beast lurking just beneath my skin. Just then, an unexpected sound broke through our fragile moment. A loud rumble echoed in the distance, followed by another closer rumble that sent shivers down my spine. My heart dropped as realization struck. It was thunder rolling ominously through the valley. "We should head inside," he suggested quickly as dark clouds began gathering overhead. As we retreated into the cabin's cozy confines once more, unease settled in with us like an unwelcome guest. The storm outside mirrored turmoil brewing within. Thunder cracked loudly above us as if nature itself understood our predicament. We busied ourselves preparing breakfast, eggs sizzling on a skillet while rain began tapping gently against windows, each sound amplifying tension between us until finally we sat down together at the small wooden table. "Do you think your dad will be okay?" he asked suddenly after several moments of silence punctuated only by raindrops falling rhythmically outside. "I hope so," I replied cautiously before adding with hesitation, "He's been distant lately." His brow furrowed slightly. Perhaps he sensed there were deeper issues lurking beneath surface conversations between husband and wife, issues that had long gone unaddressed but now seemed impossible to ignore given our current circumstances. The conversation shifted away from heavy topics as we shared stories about childhood adventures and silly moments from family gatherings, laughter breaking through tension like sunlight piercing clouds after a storm. But even those fleeting joys couldn't erase shadows creeping ever closer around us. After breakfast ended with awkward smiles exchanged across plates cleared hastily away, a reminder that normalcy still existed somewhere beyond this cabin, I excused myself under pretense of needing fresh air again while internally grappling with choices looming large ahead like mountains casting long shadows over valleys below them. Once outside on porch again feeling rain cool against skin, I spotted something nestled among bushes nearby. An envelope partially hidden beneath leaves caught my eye, drawing me closer until realization hit hard. It was an old love letter addressed to me from him, the husband whose absence weighed heavily upon heart now intertwined with another's warmth instead. With trembling hands, I opened it carefully, reading words penned years ago filled with promises once cherished but now faded like photographs left too long under sunlight. Nostalgia mingled sharply with guilt, threatening to consume everything within reach. "Mom?" His voice startled me from reverie, pulling attention back toward cabin where he stood watching curiously, an innocent expression masking deeper understanding perhaps lurking just beneath surface too. I quickly folded letter, slipping it into pocket before responding, "Just thinking about things." His gaze lingered on mine, searching for answers hidden somewhere deep inside swirling chaos surrounding us both, an understanding growing stronger yet more complicated each passing moment spent together under roof meant for family rather than secrets shared between two souls lost amidst tangled emotions. That evening, a storm raged outside, mirroring tumultuous feelings brewing within. We found ourselves drawn closer together again amidst flickering candlelight, illuminating faces filled with uncertainty yet yearning desperately for connection despite knowing consequences looming ever closer. As shadows danced across walls, the weight of choices hung heavy. We sat side by side sharing whispered fears about what lay ahead, unsure whether paths chosen would lead toward reconciliation or destruction. But just then, the sound of tires crunching gravel reached ears, breaking through intimate cocoon encasing us both. Anticipation mixed dread surged forth, realizing who approached cabin door unannounced. The very man whose absence had created space for all this confusion now returning unexpectedly. Panic set in like icy fingers gripping heart tight. A desperate need to hide truths gathered around us, threatening exposure as doors swung open, revealing familiar figures standing there silhouetted against fading light, casting long shadows behind him. In that moment, I knew nothing would ever be simple again. Life hung precariously upon edge, waiting patiently just beyond reach, ready to tip scales irrevocably toward unknown futures filled with uncertainty lingering just out of grasp. The door swung open, and I stood frozen, heart racing as my husband stepped into the cabin. His silhouette was familiar yet foreign, a figure from a life that felt increasingly distant. The warmth of the room clashed with the chill creeping up my spine. The moment stretched, thick with unspoken words and hidden truths. "Surprise," he said, his voice light but laced with an edge I couldn't quite place. He had come early, catching me in a moment I had never intended to share. My stepson lay just beyond the threshold of our shared secret, the air heavy with tension. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" I managed to ask, forcing casualness into my tone. The question felt like a flimsy shield against the reality crashing down around us. "I wanted to surprise you both," he replied, stepping further inside. "I thought we could enjoy some time together as a family." His smile felt more like an accusation than an invitation. I glanced at my stepson, who remained still on the couch, eyes wide and uncertain. A rush of guilt washed over me, the weight of our shared moments pressed heavily on my chest. "Did you have fun while I was gone?" my husband continued, turning his attention to the half-empty wine bottle on the table and the remnants of our shared laughter from earlier that day. My mind raced as I searched for an answer that wouldn't betray us. "We hiked and explored a bit," I said cautiously, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sounds nice." He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. There was something different about him, an unfamiliar warmth that felt almost like a mask hiding deeper feelings beneath. It unnerved me. As he moved through the cabin, I caught myself wishing for a glimpse of what lay behind his facade. Had he changed? Did he sense the distance between us? Or was this simply another layer of his protective shell? "I brought some things for us to do tonight," he said cheerfully, pulling out board games from his bag as if they were tokens of normalcy that could bridge our growing divide. "Thought we could play together." My heart sank at his enthusiasm. It seemed so misplaced in this moment thick with secrets. My stepson shifted slightly on the couch, clearly uncomfortable with this sudden intrusion into what had felt like a private world just moments before. "Sure," I replied weakly, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "That sounds great." We settled around the table, a fragile truce formed in silence as we began playing one game after another. Laughter punctuated our evening but felt hollow against the backdrop of unacknowledged truths swirling in the air around us. Every glance exchanged between my husband and stepson held unspoken questions and fears, every laugh echoed with reminders of what had transpired before this unexpected reunion. The shadows danced across our faces as evening deepened into night, each flicker of candlelight illuminating fragments of our fractured lives. At one point during a particularly intense round of charades, my husband caught me watching my stepson too closely, his brow furrowed in concentration while trying to guess an answer that eluded him. A flicker of something passed between us. It sent heat rushing through me and left me breathless under my husband's gaze. "What's going on over there?" he asked playfully but with an edge that made my stomach knot. "Nothing," I replied too quickly, shaking off what had almost been an admission hanging in the air, a truth too dangerous to utter aloud. As midnight approached, we wrapped up our games and settled into uneasy silence once more, the weight of unsaid words pressing down heavily upon us all. My husband's demeanor shifted subtly. He seemed less jovial now, more introspective, a stark contrast to how carefree he had been earlier in the evening. "You two seem closer than ever," he remarked casually but with an undertone that set off alarm bells in my mind. "It's just been nice spending time together," I replied defensively without thinking, a slip that revealed more than intended. He nodded slowly as if weighing each word carefully before responding. I'm glad you're getting along. But there was something else lurking behind those words, an unasked question lingering just beneath the surface. The night wore on until exhaustion finally settled over us like a heavy blanket, the kind that suffocated rather than comforted. My husband excused himself to prepare for bed first while leaving me alone with my thoughts, and my stepson, who remained seated in silence across from me. What do we do now? He finally asked softly after several moments passed, his voice barely above a whisper but filled with urgency laced through it like electricity sparking between us again unexpectedly. I shook my head slowly, unable to find words capable of easing either his or my own turmoil, instead opting for silence. A choice riddled with implications neither one dared voice aloud, yet still loomed large between us both, hanging heavily over this fragile moment shared under dim light flickering overhead, casting long shadows across our faces, reminding us all too well what lay ahead if truths were ever revealed. I don't know, was all I managed, finally breaking free from thoughts swirling chaotically within me, the uncertainty thickening around us both, suffocating any hope for clarity amidst confusion lingering just beyond reach. Then suddenly footsteps echoed down hallways leading toward where we sat, my husband returning unexpectedly, causing panic flaring anew within me, making heart race wildly once more, threatening exposure again so soon after discovering hidden depths only recently unearthed. The door creaked open, revealing him standing there looking back at us expectantly. Confusion etched across features juxtaposed against warmth still lingering underneath, surface tension evident in every breath drawn between three souls tangled together, now caught amidst choices made without foresight or intent. What were you two talking about? He asked, innocently enough yet piercing through layers carefully constructed, shielding hearts vulnerable beneath layers built upon years past, filled with longing, unfulfilled dreams left abandoned somewhere along way. Panic surged within me again as realization dawned starkly. Life would never return to simplicity, not now, not after everything shared since arriving here together amidst pines, whispering secrets, waiting patiently outside, waiting patiently beyond reach. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the cabin floor. My husband's arrival had shifted the atmosphere, turning our secluded retreat into a pressure cooker of unspoken truths. I busied myself in the kitchen, trying to mask the tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. I could hear his voice, warm and inviting, as he greeted my stepson with an enthusiasm that felt almost foreign. "Did you catch any fish?" he asked, his tone light, as if nothing had changed. I glanced over my shoulder to see them laughing together, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt. How could I have allowed myself to get so close to my stepson? The memories of whispered secrets and shared laughter echoed in my mind. As they settled into a comfortable rhythm, I tried to focus on preparing dinner. The clinking of pots and pans filled the space between us, but the silence was heavy with unspoken words. My heart raced as I recalled how we had shared stories under the stars just days before, how we kissed. Those moments felt like mere shadows now. "Smells great in here," my husband said, stepping into the kitchen with an easy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You've been busy." I nodded, forcing a smile back at him. "Just trying to make it special for us all." The words tasted bitter on my tongue. Were these moments still special? Or were they mere facades hiding deeper fractures? As we gathered around the table for dinner, I felt acutely aware of every glance exchanged between them. My husband's laughter rang out like music while my stepson's responses were laced with something deeper, an understanding that only we shared. It was unsettling how quickly things had shifted from playful banter to something more complex. "Have you two been getting along?" my husband asked casually while passing a bowl of salad. "Of course," my stepson replied too quickly, his eyes darting toward me for a fleeting moment before returning to his plate. I held my breath. What would he say if he knew what lay beneath our surface? After dinner, we moved outside to enjoy the cool evening breeze. The campfire crackled softly, its warmth contrasted sharply with the chill creeping into my bones as uncertainty settled in. My husband began recounting stories from his childhood, each tale filled with nostalgia and innocence that felt worlds apart from our current reality. "I remember when my dad took me fishing for the first time," he said wistfully. "It was one of those perfect days where everything just clicked." The vivid imagery drew me in momentarily until I caught sight of my stepson's expression, a mix of longing and something else entirely that made my stomach churn with unease. He looked at his father as if searching for something lost between them. It was clear their relationship needed mending too. Suddenly, laughter erupted from behind us. A group of festival-goers wandered past our cabin, their voices ringing out in cheerful tones that seemed distant from our own gathering. My heart sank further. This vacation was supposed to be about reconnecting but instead felt like an unraveling thread pulling us apart. As night fell and darkness enveloped us like a shroud, I excused myself under the pretense of checking on things inside. Alone in the dimly lit cabin, memories flooded back, the warmth of shared glances with my stepson during those intimate moments when we spent the night together. Those stolen moments felt both intoxicating and terrifying now. I leaned against the counter for support and closed my eyes tightly against swirling emotions threatening to engulf me whole when suddenly I heard voices outside, their tones low but urgent enough to draw me closer toward an open window. "I can't keep pretending everything is fine," my husband said quietly. "What do you mean?" came my stepson's hesitant reply. "Things have been off between us for a while now," he continued, his voice tinged with vulnerability that both surprised and unsettled me. A lump formed in my throat as curiosity propelled me closer to eavesdrop further on their conversation, a dangerous game yet impossible not to play given circumstances unfolding around us. "I know you don't think much about it," he added after a pause filled with hesitation. "But I've been feeling distant too. Maybe it's time we talk about what happened last year." My heart raced at his words. So much left unsaid hung heavily between them, unresolved issues threatening to spill over into our fragile dynamic if not addressed soon enough. "I wish things were different," my stepson whispered back softly enough that I barely caught it through shut windows separating us from their truths laid bare beneath stars twinkling overhead like silent witnesses observing this unraveling drama unfold before them without intervention or guidance offered whatsoever. Just then, footsteps approached, the unmistakable sound of someone coming toward me, and panic surged through me once again as realization dawned starkly. Life would never return to simplicity, not now. Not after everything shared since arriving here together amidst pines whispering secrets waiting patiently outside waiting patiently beyond reach. Before I could react or retreat back into shadows cast by flickering firelight outside illuminating paths taken before leading down treacherous roads paved by desire tangled within layers built upon years past filled with longing unfulfilled dreams left abandoned, somewhere a long way. The doors swung open abruptly revealing both men standing just beyond threshold. Faces etched deeply with emotions swirling beneath surfaces barely contained beneath layers carefully constructed shielding hearts vulnerable beneath layers built upon years past filled with longing unfulfilled dreams left abandoned somewhere a long way. "What were you two talking about?" he asked innocently enough yet piercing through layers carefully constructed shielding hearts vulnerable beneath layers built upon years past filled with longing unfulfilled dreams left abandoned somewhere a long way. Panic surged within me again as realization dawned starkly. Life would never return to simplicity, not now, not after everything shared since arriving here together amidst pines whispering secrets waiting patiently outside waiting patiently beyond reach. The air in the cabin felt thick with unspoken words, a tension that hung like the heavy scent of pine. My husband's question lingered, echoing in the silence that followed. I forced a smile, but inside, my heart raced. How could I explain the depth of our shared moments without revealing too much? The laughter around the campfire had morphed into something more profound, something I wasn't ready to confront. "Just catching up," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm brewing within me. My stepson looked at me with an understanding that made my stomach twist. He seemed to sense the weight of our secret, yet he maintained a facade of innocence. As we settled into dinner, I noticed my husband's demeanor had shifted. He was engaging and attentive, his eyes sparkling with a warmth I hadn't seen in years. Yet beneath that warmth lay an undercurrent of tension, a reminder that our past was not easily forgotten. Each bite felt like a performance. I chewed slowly, savoring food while grappling with my emotions. The conversation flowed easily enough, stories from his childhood and memories from past vacations, but every laugh felt like a reminder of how distant we had grown. My stepson chimed in occasionally, his youthful exuberance contrasting sharply with the weight of my thoughts. I found myself stealing glances at him when I thought no one was looking, recalling moments shared under the stars and in whispered tones. After dinner, we moved to the living area where the fireplace crackled softly. The flames danced wildly as if mirroring my inner turmoil. My husband suggested a game to lighten the mood, a simple card game that required little thought but offered plenty of distraction. As we played, laughter filled the space between us, however, it felt hollow against the backdrop of unacknowledged feelings. Then it happened, a trivial argument erupted over a misplayed card. It started innocently enough but escalated quickly as frustrations surfaced. My husband's voice rose slightly, and for a moment, I saw glimpses of anger mixed with hurt in his eyes. "Why can't you just focus for once?" he snapped at me. Taken aback by his sudden outburst, I stared at him incredulously. "It's just a game," I replied defensively. "It's never just a game with you," he shot back before turning his attention to our stepson as if seeking support from him instead. My heart sank as I witnessed this exchange, two men in my life who were emotionally distant in their own ways now clashing over something so trivial yet deeply revealing about our fractured dynamic. "I'm sorry," my stepson interjected hesitantly, sensing the rising tension between us adults. "Let's just move on." I nodded silently but felt trapped between two worlds, the comfort of familiarity and the thrill of something new yet forbidden. The evening dragged on as we attempted to salvage what remained of our night together, however, every laugh felt forced now. When bedtime came around, exhaustion washed over me like waves crashing against rocks on a stormy shore. As I lay there alone in bed later that night, my mind racing, I couldn't shake off how close everything had come to unraveling completely. In those quiet moments before sleep claimed me again, memories flooded back, laughter shared by candlelight during storms, stolen glances filled with longing, whispered secrets exchanged beneath starry skies, all reminders of choices made and paths not taken. Morning dawned bright and warm outside our cabin window. Sunlight streamed through gaps in wooden shutters casting stripes across my pillow, a stark contrast to how darkly complicated life felt inside me right now. I rose early while everyone else slept soundly. Perhaps solitude would offer clarity amidst chaos swirling around me like leaves caught up in autumn winds outside. As coffee brewed quietly beside me, its rich aroma filling space, I contemplated what lay ahead for all three of us, unresolved feelings bubbling just beneath surfaces long ignored. Suddenly footsteps broke through my reverie. My stepson emerged from his room looking disheveled yet undeniably handsome even at this early hour. "Good morning," he said softly as he shuffled toward me still half asleep but undeniably charming nonetheless. "Morning," I managed to reply while pouring him some coffee. Our fingers brushed briefly against one another sending an electric jolt through me once again reminding me how dangerous these feelings had become. We settled into comfortable silence for several moments sipping coffee together, the warmth radiating between us undeniable even amidst uncertainty looming over everything else left unsaid. Then he spoke again breaking through stillness surrounding us both. "Can we talk about last night?" My heart raced anew at those words. They held so much weight yet felt perilous given circumstances surrounding us all right now. "Maybe it's best if we don't," I replied cautiously unsure whether truth would set things free or further entangle them deeper within emotional webs spun intricately over time. "What do you mean?" His brow furrowed, slightly confused by my hesitation, his vulnerability shining through despite everything else weighing heavily upon us both. "I don't want things to get complicated," I murmured, finally feeling courage build within myself even amidst fear creeping closer inch by inch. He nodded slowly, understanding where hesitation stemmed from, but there was something else lurking behind those eyes. It wasn't mere acceptance. It was longing mixed with desperation, urging forth unspoken truths, waiting patiently just below surface level, yearning desperately for acknowledgement. Before either could say anything more profound than what already hung thickly between us, the front door swung open unexpectedly, heralding arrival no one anticipated. My husband stepped inside, looking fresh-faced, ready for whatever day lay ahead, oblivious entirely towards currents shifting beneath surface-level, emotions swirling around like leaves caught up amidst autumn winds outside. The moment froze as realization dawned upon all three of us simultaneously, a silent acknowledgement hanging heavily within air, thickened by secrets left unspoken, waiting patiently beyond reach. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, a tension that felt almost tangible. My husband's entrance shattered the fragile bubble we had created, and I could see the confusion etched on my stepson's face. He sat up abruptly, his expression a mixture of surprise and fear, as if caught between two worlds that were now colliding. I felt my heart race, the weight of our secret pressing down on me like an anchor. "Good morning," my husband said with a smile that seemed too bright for the moment. It was a facade, masking the underlying tension that crackled in the room. He glanced around, taking in the disheveled bed and our startled expressions. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "No, just getting ready for the day," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. The lie hung in the air like a bad omen, and I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks. My stepson shifted uncomfortably beside me, his eyes darting between us as if searching for an escape route. The silence stretched out interminably until my husband broke it again. "I thought we could explore some hiking trails today. There's a festival in town later." His enthusiasm felt misplaced against the backdrop of our shared secret. "Sounds great," my stepson managed to say, though his tone lacked conviction. As we moved through breakfast preparations, I stole glances at both men, one oblivious to the storm brewing beneath our surface interactions, the other caught in a whirlwind of emotions he didn't know how to articulate. My heart twisted painfully as I thought about how quickly everything had spiraled out of control during this trip meant for bonding. After breakfast, we set off into the woods, each step feeling heavier than the last. The lush greenery surrounded us like a cocoon, but instead of comfort, it heightened my sense of entrapment. My husband chatted animatedly about trails he had read about while my stepson walked slightly behind us, lost in thought. "Did you guys hear about that local legend?" my husband asked suddenly, breaking through my reverie. "What legend?" my stepson replied, his curiosity piqued despite his earlier distraction. "The one about lovers who got lost in these woods and were never found," he said with a chuckle. "They say their spirits still wander here." A shiver ran down my spine at his words, a reminder of how easily love could turn into something haunting and tragic. I exchanged a quick glance with my stepson. It was fleeting but charged with meaning that only we understood. As we reached a clearing overlooking a serene lake reflecting the sky's azure hue, I suggested we take a break. We settled onto an old log while nature enveloped us in its tranquil embrace. The moment felt surreal, laughter echoed from nearby picnic-goers enjoying their own slice of summer joy. "I've been thinking," my stepson began hesitantly after several moments of silence filled only by chirping birds and rustling leaves. "About what happened?" I held my breath as he continued. "I didn't expect to feel so connected to you during this trip." His gaze held mine firmly, there was no turning back now. I started but faltered under his intense scrutiny. Before I could gather my thoughts or find words that wouldn't betray us both further, he took another step forward emotionally, his confession spilling out like water breaking through a dam. "I think about you all the time." My heart raced anew as those words sank in deeper than any before them. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. This was not just youthful infatuation but something more profound that had grown between us amidst shared moments and stolen glances. In that instant, a heartbeat suspended in time, I felt an overwhelming pull towards him again despite knowing it was wrong on so many levels. But before either of us could respond further or explore where this path might lead us next, an unexpected rustling broke our momentary bubble, the sound unmistakable against nature's symphony, footsteps approaching fast from behind. My husband emerged from between trees just as realization dawned upon him too late. Confusion morphed into disbelief upon seeing us together, me perched close beside his son on that log beneath sun-dappled branches above. "What's going on here?" His voice cut through the air like glass shattering, a mix of shock and betrayal laced within every syllable spoken aloud, now hanging over all three of us like storm clouds threatening rain. "Dad." My stepson jumped up instantly while I remained frozen, a deer caught in headlights, unable to flee or fight against what had been revealed so suddenly before our eyes. "I can explain," I stammered, finally finding voice amidst chaos swirling around me. The weight crushing down harder than ever before as shadows loomed larger than life itself, now closing in fast upon everything familiar once cherished deeply within this family unit, torn apart by secrets kept too long hidden away from sight. But would any explanation suffice? Would it matter what words fell from trembling lips when trust lay shattered across ground beneath feet? With every heartbeat echoing louder than silence enveloping us all now, my mind raced furiously, trying to find clarity amidst turmoil raging within hearts left exposed, raw, open wide, without protection against consequences looming ever closer, threatening everything built so carefully over years past. And then came realization crashing down. It wasn't just secrets unveiled but lives intertwined, irrevocably altered forevermore by choices made during moments when darkness beckoned softly, whispering sweet temptations promising fulfillment, lost somewhere a long way forward toward light once sought after desperately. What would happen next? Would love triumph over betrayal? Or would devastation reign supreme, leaving nothing but ashes behind where hopes once flourished brightly, shining forth, illuminating paths yet unexplored, waiting patiently still beyond horizon, beckoning ever onward, drawing nearer with each passing breath taken? In that suspended moment, filled with uncertainty hanging heavily above heads turned towards one another, desperately searching for answers, there lay no easy resolution ahead, only shadows stretching endlessly into unknown futures yet unwritten, waiting patiently beyond reach, awaiting decisions made right here, right now.